everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Sandwich Stories. Today with us we have architect by profession and also an entrepreneur by character. We have Goutham Nijalingappa.
Hi, hi. Nice to be on the show.
So, just a bit about yourself. What we know here is that you have been in the business of architectural designs for over 7 years.
Yeah.
And in 2017 onwards, I believe, and you have amazing projects like that has been done in Indianagar, FA Max, and co-living spaces and S9 and everything. So, where did it start for you? As you could speak to us about this journey, and then what made you choose to start eventually this?
So basically, I think when I finished my masters, I studied abroad. I did my masters in London. And I came back. Eventually, I had no idea of having my own firm. I think that was a very distant thought. I did come back, and I found a job in Bangalore near Sakar Nagar, working for a small firm, which I always preferred, because you get to do more work. You're involved in all the aspects of architecture, as opposed to if you work with a big firm, you get to do parts of the big project. So it's very interesting. I worked with a lot of very high-end projects. I think some of them, we did a couple of NGO-based work. A lot of interesting stuff, but we never actually had a plan of, I didn't have a plan of opening an office. So I met my current partner, who's also a batchmate from my bachelor days. Her name's Anshul. So I met her again working at the same firm. Because we sort of knew each other, we found comfort in exchanging ideas between each other in the office. We started off that way. Before we knew, we had close to about 8 projects within the first couple of months without really having to showcase previous work as a firm. And we realized that this is not something that's usual. A lot of people market themselves very highly to get projects, and we are at this point having to reject projects because we didn't have a staff, we didn't have the idea to even open a firm. So then we decided, saying this is possibly a sign, and why not do it? And very haphazard, organic way of how the design workshop is formed. Architecture has the capacity to change lifestyles of people. As an example, I think that might be too broad. So as an example, say about 15 years ago, if you look at the trend of what was in Bangalore 20 years ago, if you find any apartments there, you always had larger living spaces. You had large kitchens which were attached to dining attached to living. They're all, they didn't particularly have to be open plan sort of a situation, but they're all large spaces, which meant that you are accommodating for joint families. You are accommodating for a lot of people that kind of visit very regularly, and that's why you needed to have these larger spaces. If you look at the trend over the last 5 years or even last 10 years, it's changed drastically. Everything's become smaller because we are looking at nuclear families. We are looking at childless couples who prefer to stay that way. I think this goes hand in hand with what's happening in the society, but it's also slightly driven by how architecture is planned. For example, if I have an open kitchen, I am sort of inviting people into my kitchen saying, you can come and have a look at what I'm doing. This is an unrestricted space for you. Whereas the previous thought process was, this is off limits. This is not where you enter. Everything, all the dirty works happen behind the scene. And, I'll show you the best part of my life. Mm-hmm. So I think it goes hand in hand. I think what architects today are missing is there is a lot of power in what we are doing. And what happens is if you have a popular architect or a very good architect who are doing a sort of design, who's doing a form of architecture, a lot of people tend to copy them, because now with social media, everything is, you get to know instantly. So if there is a bar that is done with a certain design or a certain way, within the next 6 months, you will find 15, 20 of that in the same scenario. is only because there's a lot of imitation that's going on. So architecture has that power to change lifestyles of people. I think introducing bars into homes is another small change that we've seen of the last 15 years. I don't think 25 years ago a lot of houses had bars, but now every house has at least a cabinet, if not more.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Basically, the way you spoke about architecture, it would also enhance someone to look at it as a career option.
Yeah.
So here we are saying that how people imitate your style, and it is all the more challenging for someone to stand separately as a different unique person or unique style that is there. Over it is your creativity cannot be stolen, isn't it? So, how do you keep that USP within, for example, in design workshop? You would be having some projects because they'll take inspiration from you or something, and it might feel good. Or in the first place, do you feel good or bad about it?
Actually, very, very interesting, because I think that I genuinely think there is nothing in today's world that we're inventing that's already not been done before. Very, very, very few things, and it is we're barely reinventing anything. We're barely I think if you talk about electric cars, it's thought of in the 50s. I don't think it's a new invention. It's basically we're driving to that thought at this point. I think it's similar with architecture also. So if anyone imitates you, you've already done a form of imitation of something before. So if you look at what trends are happening, you're looking at your more contemporary style, which was there before. You're looking at imitations of maybe the Roman architecture. You're looking at imitations of parametric, which is in line with what's happening with plants and nature and the geometric forms that nature forms, and we kind of copy that. Like there's a very popular architect called Zaha Hadid, whose I think her whole life is based out of studying natural structures and imitating that as a form of building. So I think most of us are inspired by it. I don't think I don't think anything is 100% genuine in today's day and age. I don't think anyone should assume that they're creating the best thing that's possibly there on earth, because it's already been done before. I think what Elon Musk does is his open IP, basically his protocols, that he's just said you can use my technology and build your own Teslas or cars or whatever. And he says it's just better for the humanity. And I think that's something that we should look at. I don't think it's. I think it's a good thing.
But does it affect your business in some way?
So yeah, I mean, of course, you can't copy them. I don't think that's so. The way we work is we have a lot of clients who come to us, especially off late, that says, "Oh, you know what? We have seen this on the internet, and this is exactly how I want my room." So what we do is the first thing we do is we work with the client to understand what their lifestyle is, how they live, how they should be living is something that we have a conversation with. They might want to have double the storage in their new house or new office or whatever, but it might not be necessary. They might just be wanting more because they've already finished what they have. So we try to understand what their lifestyle is and build everything to the niche. So I think the easiest way for any architect to do is imitation of a certain space. Like there is 4 or 5 different principles you follow, like your material, your color shade, and XYZ. You follow these and you should be able to replicate the idea behind the inspiration photo. But you should, what we do is we basically, where we cater to what the client requirements is. And actually the few, very interestingly, some clients say one thing, but they showcase something else. So they will show me a picture of a very large bedroom, very plain, like you said, contemporary, with just a few, centerpieces. But they would be having a conversation to us that indicates that that's not what they want. They would like a smaller space, something more cozy, more natural materials. So this is something that we've learned over the last few years to pick up on, so that we, at the end of the day, cater to what they want. So we always have a what they want versus what they need. So that's what we cater to. I think this is what that sort of separates us from what the market is doing. I mean, yeah, there are other people who are doing similar things, but this is, I think, what we are specialized in.
Okay, so in the requirement phase, so if let's just imagine I am a customer,
Yeah.
and I'm just coming and asking you that I am a middle-aged man, say, and I want a gaming room for my kid.
Yeah.
In reality, maybe it is for myself.
Possibly.
Right? That's it. But that's the situation. So what would be the process behind? Like, you take the requirements and how do you work it backwards?
Actually, that's so funny because we have a client who is doing that currently. So, I mean, it's not a gaming room, but he's someone who likes his luxuries, and his wife doesn't like as much. So we in that family we have two clients. We have the husband and the wife as a couple who's a client, and we have the husband who has secret ventures that he wants us to put in, and he say, "I'll manage with the wife later. Once it's all done, she won't say break it. So I'm okay there."
This is like a secret.
Yeah. So I mean, it's nothing naughty. It's nothing naughty. It's all it's just luxuries that he likes, and I think that's okay. He wants it. He knows it's possibly the last house he's building. He doesn't want to break things anymore. And I think those things are something that we do cater to. I think we do approach it. We do have that. So we have another client who likes smoking a little, and she wants places to hide it, which is inbuilt. So we do cater to those things. It's fun. I think it's fun. It's a fun part of the work we do.
And that's just natural.
Yeah.
So, okay, a little bit about the process behind, like what happens after requirement gathering. Where do you? I mean, basically you design. Also, no, it is something on my chest. I need to get it out. What is the basic difference between a civil engineer, your interior designers, and an architect? And where does one's work stop? If it is?
I think there is no physical, say, boundary of the three of them. I think actually when you look at a project, there are four stakeholders. So I think the first one would be the client, the biggest stakeholder, because he has the idea what he wants. I think then comes in your contractor and your architect, who have one has a capacity to vision what the client wants, the other has a capacity to execute what the client wants. So they go hand in hand with each other. As long as things are okay between the three of them, it's all good. The minute things go bad, there's always fights and all of that. I think that's part of the process. Yeah. I think interior designer is something that I have my own reservations about it. So if an architect is able to design a house well, because you build it from scratch, you build a house from zero. If you are able to cater to your clients with all their needs and their wants to the dot, maybe even 80% of what they want, I don't see a requirement of what an interior designer would be, except that it's an aesthetic input that they have. So if, for example, like if I am telling you saying, you're the client who's come to me, you have a requirement for wardrobes, you have a requirement for how the bathroom would be. Now, when an interior designer comes, the job of an interior designer is to envision what the space inside the room would be. But when an architect has already done that to a large extent, her input would possibly be change of a few materials, maybe internal details of what the wardrobe would be, and limit it to these things. Now, the amount of changes between this is quite low. So if an architect, I always believe if an architect is able to do a good job, you will barely require an interior designer to come into the process. You should be able to do 95% of your job. And yes, there will be, so you will always have some execution people who come in, like the contractor might just do civil, and then you might have an interior contractor also to execute your ideas. Now, if that is the case, that's fine. But if you're saying, I'm going to do as an architect, I'm going to finish my job, and then we hand it over to an interior person, who obviously will have their own ideas and their own thought process and the whole way they work. But if they're going to rethink everything that the architect has done, then what's the point of paying the architect the money that you are?
It's redundant.
I think it should go hand in hand. I think an interior designer should be redundant in a residential scope, But I think as a commercial, I think they are very important because you're looking at hospitality, especially, which is highly dependent on the ambience of this place. You talk about bars or a hotel. Interior design is where you would go. I mean, architecture would make a difference, but I think ambience created is important for that space. So that's a lot of interior design. So with residential, especially, I think you should be able to kind of hand over to the client 80%, 90% of what they're looking at.
So we're saying architects basically deal with all sorts of building, right? It's not just,
Yeah.
I mean, what comes to my head is basically a bungalow or someone of that sort.
Yeah.
But there is a total different segment called commercial, in spaces, restaurants,
Oh, yeah.
co-living, all those things. So which is your, I mean, at least for design workshop, this is your bread and butter, or like, when I have to put a pie chart on it.
Actually, that's so funny because I think over the last 7 years that we've been there, we've moved from we always had a year and a half or about a year. It's a cycle that we followed. I don't know how, coincidentally. So we've done residential, and then we've done only commercial, and then we've done only F&B, and then we've done only residential. We've done only interiors. So at this point, we're at the only residential phase. But there is, like you said, there is literally every building that is built generally has an architect. We've done designs for single bathrooms, believe it or not. We've also designed one of the biggest museums in Bangalore. So I think it's called Curiosity Science Center. It's off Sajapur Main Road. It's about 4 acres and about close to an acre of built-up space. Very different thought process of how it's done. So we've done all sorts of work. As long as it's either exciting or it makes financial sense because we're a business, we're happy to pick up anything.
So yes, I would like to know what is more difficult or what is more challenging between designing and redesigning a place. Like, for example, you might be having clients who have a space already.
Yeah.
They want to revamp their cafe or whatever. So that is one aspect. And someone who just like bought a new place and everything is with you. So which is more harder if you have to have a comparison.
I think so. When you set off, we have something called obstacles on site, even if it's a new project. So when you start, you have a road, a tree, a light pole, a transformer in front of your house. So these are all what we call as, you can call it as obstacles that you need to design around, that you can't run away from. You might have a big rock under your property that you can't run away from. So similarly, when you're doing refurbishment of a property, the number of obstacles that is there is slightly higher. So I think in terms of which is easier to do is, I think that there are some more restrictions when you're doing a renovation. Like, I think there will be something that you cannot change the structure of unless you want to tear down some part of the building. But other than that, I think most of them both of them are not, then there's no difficult. I think you need to think around outside the box, I guess, at this point.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, but most of the times, we could say cafes that are coming in or the commercial spaces, would come with a lot more of refurbishment kind of cases, right? As compared to
So most hospitality, most offices, I think you can sort of generalize it saying it is corporate work. Always come with what we call as a bare shell. So you have a set boundary and you have your certain structure that's entitled into it, and you work within that. It is, I don't know whether it is more harder to work with it, is more easier. I think it is a different perspective you need to take to having that space designed.
Okay, so you were speaking about commercial, what was it again? Corporate offices, right? So
any commercial, So we do all sorts of projects, like I mentioned before. I think corporate offices we've done some for venture capitalists. We've done a couple of for venture capitalists actually. We've done some for some offices Like I mentioned, we've done co-working spaces before. We've done a couple of F&B. I think the popular one you might have heard of is Cafe Max. They moved away from the Max Mula Bhavan. Now they're on 12th Main in Danagar. They've been there for a while, so it's a small project that we did. We had our input. The clients had a very strong idea of what they want. I think our role was to kind of integrate their demands, because they're very strict. So when you work with corporates, your timelines are very, very strict. I think there is no extension unless, because someone is paying for the rent of that place, or if they're paying in terms of loss of business. So I think it's very important that the deadlines are set. So we plan ourselves in such a way that the design is not overcomplicated. We're able to achieve things within the time frame, and it's not ridiculously hard for the contractor to finish his job.
So how do you get these clients in the first place? I mean, is it more of a good strategy where, you're just, you've done some work and word of mouth, you're waiting for that to transpire? Or is it like you go and approach them, you take an aggressive approach and talk to new people who are...
I think with architecture is the same as working with doctors or lawyers. I think you will always, irrespective of how popular you become, it's always has to be a word of mouth. Like if I have to go in for a heart surgery, I will ask 4 different people who've been through that process and ask them who's a good surgeon, and I will make that call. It's not going to be top 5 architects in Bangalore and I just pick one of them. I think for us, we've been very, very lucky. We are horrible at our marketing, which we should definitely improve. But we've been very lucky to actually get projects initially from friends and family that transpired to work we've done before and our previous clients. Even till today, it is always previous clients, people who have worked with us before. Even our old contractors have recommended us to lots of prospective clients. So I think I think we're very lucky in that case. But I think you have to do some sort of marketing, not in a way that it will bring you clients, but in a way that showcases the sort of work that you do.
Okay. So that's interesting, because if at all a cafe, just to take a case which would be easily understandable, which is Cafe Max.
Yeah.
So it's just a bit on how you got them as a client, as well as do they work? If you recollect how you got them as a client, as well as do these clients look at timelines as a criteria for giving work, or if the word of mouth is there and they know that the belief is there, then they're okay to just pick to one person. Why I'm asking this is because some of the real estate go with the auction or bidding process and all happens where your competitors might say that I can do the same project in 5 months or something lesser than
I think there's always going to be competition with any work that you do. I think there will always be someone who'll do it faster. There'll always be someone who'll do it cheaper. I think you've got to value the amount of work that you do. We follow a very thorough process of how we start a project and how we hand over. It requires a lot of time, a lot of effort from us, our whole team, and there's a rate that we charge for that. Now, similarly, like you said, how do we get our client for even Cafe Max is again word of mouth. So most of our clients come through word of mouth. They have a conversation with us. We have that first conversation always on site. So we're able to understand what is the potential of the project. We give them our initial thoughts, saying this is what we plan, this is what we can do. If it's in lines of things, then this is what we charge. And then you can come back to us if all 3 of them are matching. If they do come back, then we always give them we always ask them for a set of pictures that tells us, saying this is the interior or this the ambience that they're looking at, the space that they're looking at. Once we get them, we're very adamant on what is it that you have picked out in this picture. So if it's a picture of a bedroom which is very rich in materials and highly glossy, so we want to understand why they picked that out. Like, it can just be a nice picture. They might have just liked the bed in that picture, but they send me the whole picture. So this is coming back to how we learn the lifestyle of our clients. These are the kind of small questions that we ask. So if it's a bed or the headboard style of a bed or the storage under the bed that they liked, but they send us the whole picture, our interpretation of that reference image for my case would be completely different, because my perspective as an architect is very different than what my clients would be. So I think that is something that we go back and forth on. I think that's important.
Must be having a lot of manpower who are like other architects, right? So in this case, where your company has been there for around 7 years,
Yeah.
what kind of hiring process do you follow, and how do you get the best out of your hires that you have, the architects who are coming new into your organization?
So for us, we've gone through the whole A to Z of how to hire people. I think what we have found best is so we have hired everyone from interns who turn into architects for us, all the way to 5-year experience who worked in very big firms that handled very nice big projects. Not all of them are matched to how we work, how we have a sort of system going. So most often than not, they have to relearn some amount of how to work with the team. I think in terms of hiring, like it's always hard to really find good talent, irrespective of how much money you want to give it to them. But you will always find so some of the best hires that we have are people who are just graduated from colleges or joined us as interns. We don't require them to be specialists at everything. As long as they're eager to learn, as long as they have that hunger to, I want to do this better than what I knew 3 months ago, that's more than what we need. I think everyone who wants to learn is very easily, they absorb things like sponges. That's very easy for anyone else to work. So our conversation moves from, why didn't you draw this line, or why did you miss out this switchboard in this room, to how do we plan the electrical of this room better. So a conversation is design oriented as opposed to pointing out mistakes and why this happened. So as long as someone's eager to learn, I think it's very easy to have that conversation, to hire and work with people like that.
Sorry, this is coming out really good, cool, but yeah, how much does an architect earn?
Basic salary that we pay as a fresher is about 20,000. We honestly, just based on how much they're bringing to the table. If you are an architect with 5-year experience, but you don't know how to handle a project on your own, then I would say you have to get paid as much as a fresher. But if you're a fresher who's able to do 3 projects on your own with a little bit of help from the team, then you should get paid based on what amount of work you bring to the table. I think everyone in our team has sort of understood that. So it's an incentive to do more the more projects you take on. So we have a lot of bonuses in structure for each project they do. You get more projects the minute you finish more projects. So it's a win-win for us. We get good quality work on time and they get to earn more.
We are seeing a lot of commercial spaces coming up, buildings coming up, and we know that there is definite need for architects in the city. At least in Bangalore, we can say that. So, is there enough? I mean, then as competitors also, right? Like the competitors and everyone, is there enough meat for everybody to chew on, or is it like the hiring itself is becoming a little bit of you fight for your valuable resources or the quality resources, or how is that?
I think, I don't know about other professions, but unfortunately for architecture, about 80% of them drop out within the first 2 years of practicing. So, I'm not entirely sure, but I think most of them are got into the education because of peer pressure, parent pressure. Also, they understand that it's not just I'm going to draw 6 lines and make a house. It's actual hard work. There's a lot of thought process that goes behind the scenes of how a space looks. It's a lot of hard work for very little money, especially when you begin. I think that hits a lot of people who assume that the job and profession is it is widely regarded as a very white collar job, and people make money, and everyone's dressed well and all of that. But the reality is, yes, it's as hard work as any other profession. You can't run away from it. So about 80% of them drop out, unfortunately. So there are 20%. So out of we had 150 in our batch. I think there are 10 of us or 15 of us who practice today, either as our own firm or under someone else. So it's a very sad state. But I think also with architecture, it's a lot of tedious work. So you should be very patient. You should have a lot of passion with your job. You can't do this as a 9 to 5 for sure. I don't think there's ever an architect who's done a 9 to 5 job. So unless you're in it for the long run, like any profession, a doctor, a lawyer has to build their brand or their identity over decades, there's the same thing. So if you do your due diligence over a long period of time, you will do well. But I think with the instant gratification that we live in today, I think people are going to be tougher, man. Honestly,
I'm going to come to this one point of time in the conversation.
Tell me,
why is there, we don't see this Roman architectures or those kind of architectures from how it was before. I mean, I know we have a different category of marvels these days.
Yeah.
Well, let's say Burj Khalifa or whatever. I mean, we have a different tone of it.
Right.
But is it possible to build a pyramid of Giza in today's R&D?
I think nobody knows how the pyramid of Giza was originally built. So I think that's not going to happen. But if you talk about any Roman building or the Greek buildings, I think, yeah, definitely. But I think you have to understand that we've moved as humanity. We have moved away from what was available before. The idea of a house was to shelter. Then it became, let it be a little more good looking and make more sense of how we live. And then you had what materials do you use to make that? So predominantly it was stone, especially with the Greek and the Roman. It was stone that was used. But today with technology progressing, you have even 20 boards which are as strong and perform as well as stone. So we have moved away from very labor intensive, very long process of construction to I will finish a tower in 3 years, which is possibly the biggest ever built. So I think it moves hand in hand. Very funnily, I think everyone who knows the reason, so very interesting. If you look at how builders build apartments today, it is the cheapest form of construction you can find. Always.
Like in the
whole. Yeah, I mean, if you look at any builder, not just in Bangalore, I'm saying the whole world, the cheapest form of construction is what developers and builders use. So in Bangalore, we're seeing small balconies with concrete walls or building brick walls that are being built, and that's the cheapest form. Whereas the cheapest form before was probably I will build it with stone or mud thatch before. So it is a very interesting way of thought process of if I can do a glass facade for a building and get away with it, and that's the cheapest form for me to do it, and that is what I will do.
Considering all the safety.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going away from the discipline, but I'm just saying the fastest, cheapest form, is always what developers do, because obviously they have to make money, and every square footage matters. If you kind of all sorts of materials you use kind of matters for their numbers.
Because I mean, when I was a kid, all of us were kids, I used to see a lot of red bricks and everything.
Yeah.
We don't see it. It used to become hollow bricks.
Yes.
Now, like you said, there's more of glass profiles and commercial spaces.
It is the faster way to construct. It is the cheaper way to construct in cases. So we are moving. So technology. So if you want to have a Roman style, Greek style, or even a vernacular Indian style building, it will be more expensive to have that being constructed today in your house than doing a regular so-called modern architecture building. So a lot of people actually, if there is a certain cost implications to having a Kerala styled or a Bali themed house, which would cost more because there's a lot of labor involved in doing such things as opposed to I'm having a glass structure everywhere with a certain fenestration.
You have skilled labor available in India for
Indians are amazing at skilled labor. You have one of the best skilled labor in the world in India. I think every form, be it carpenters, be it masons, be it stone workers, they're all very, very skilled. Different form of skill, of course. You have people who work with wood who are better in, let's say, Kerala, and you have to look at where they have learned their craft from. You can't hire someone from Rajasthan to do your woodwork because the amount of wood that you get there is lesser, but you can do really good stonework from Rajasthan. So there is a lot of very, very skilled labor in India. It's just that I feel like they're not utilized. Yeah, they're not utilized to the maximum extent that they're actually capable of.
So, I mean, it opens up my mind when we talk about this because each and every culture itself had different architectures. For example, Japanese itself had a different wooden lines and those kind of things. So, do you, in today's day, do read this or do you research on it and try to get inspired from those kind of buildings? If yes, then which do you get awestruck by? I mean, something which like that, and you talk about Greek and.
I think, like you said, everything is basically a resultant of what's the environment around them. The buildings that you find in, say, Dubai or Middle East is very different than what you would have found in Sri Lanka or what you would have found in Japan.
Okay.
The basic reason is that the environment around them. I think Japanese had a lot of wood around them, so everything is built out of wood. They didn't have access to metal at the initial because they started their very detailed form of shelter long before a lot of us did. So they have construction without any sort of metal, no nails, nothing. So they build whole houses with just tongue and groove joints, any form of joints. So me being awestruck with all of them is a fair thing to say because I think it is ridiculous that we haven't considered that every region, even 500 kilometers apart from each other, has their own style. I think if you look at what Palace Mysore has versus say the Gulbarga Gold Compass is miles apart from each other. I think it's very interesting to just think about the level of craftsmanship that they had to actually achieve what they did.
Take us through some of the differences. I mean, you spoke about Dubai versus Sri Lankan buildings, and even now or the Mysore Palace and Gulbarga.
Yeah. So I think Sri Lanka or the tropical climate, which is basically Kerala, Sri Lanka, Bali, they're very in lines with each other. You have a lot of, because we live in tropical forests, you have a lot of access to wood. There is a lot of rain, which means that it has to have sloped roof. Wood is if you use it properly, it's a good conductor of environment. It gives you, it's not a good conductor, sorry, it's the opposite of being a good conductor of an environment. So it gives you the warmth of being in space. It is very different to the climate that you have in the Middle East, which is a very harsh and dry climate. So you can't really have open verandas and breeze through your entire properties, just like how you would have in, let's say, Kerala. It's all open verandas everywhere. Colonnade is outside the property, so you can sit around in your verandas. Dubai would be, and everything would be closed. You will have a small hole in the center, which will probably be your hot air outlet. And then you'll have small peepholes everywhere that becomes your inlet for cooler air. So it's very different forms of design that you have in any space. I think even Europe is designed towards having a colder climate. So you would have smaller stone-based walls with accommodation for having fire inside the place. I think that's something very interesting to look to.
That's an insight bonus because to get to know why these buildings are built in a way,
Yeah,
something which we don't think about. You just look at it, and this is how Japan is.
yeah,
It gets us back to the country's relevance.
yeah.
So, Gautam, we're coming to the almost the end of the podcast. So, we spoke about pyramids of Giza and aliens and all before, right? So,
Yeah,
I was going to ask you, there's a conspiracy theory that's going on that these were built by aliens, some of the temples and all that.
yeah,
That's a conspiracy theory.
yeah.
So, as an alien, it's a belief that all the architects were aliens at that point of time.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you know I'm not?
I'm asking you as an alien, what is your next part?
As an alien?
All up to know.
I've obviously heard of this conspiracy theory. I think a lot of, I think it's also because we are not able to understand what or how the technology they use to build such very intricate, very precise, very large structures that we've not been able to replicate till date. If you look at what they've done with the pyramids of Egypt, I think the next, which was dated at least 4,000-ish years ago, I think the next large man-made structure was the Eiffel Tower, which was not even 150 years old, or lesser than that, I would say. So how is it that we've not been able to replicate something so precise as the pyramid ever again until 150 years ago? So maybe it is aliens who did it. I don't know. But why not? Maybe it could be aliens. Who knows?
Great. That was nice. Nice to know and your perspective on all of these things.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to thank you for having been patiently expressing all your information that has been there in the business. So we do hope that you had fun and you were able to let us know on all the information that you wanted to. So I would tell that this is kind of the person who when I researched for more and more I researched about him. I was trying to get more serious about what he does. Because at the start I was thinking it's a architect. I had no idea basically, right? Because I'm as a layman as I am. So that was very interesting to know. So anybody who would like to get an inquiry in, maybe he could build a pyramid of Giza for you.
Probably not.
No description with all the details in the description.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I think it's been super fun. It's been a long time since I had a casual conversation about what architecture is. I think we've been engrossed in our own work that it might have gotten a little mundane. This is a good reliever. Thank you, man. Thank you a lot.
So please do follow us if you had some information taken out of this channel. We are Sandwich Stories and we'll be back with another episode next week.